This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for listening. We've got a special one for you as On3 national scout Cody Bellaire joins the podcast to talk about SMU's 2025 commits, as well as some top targets for Rhett Lashley and his staff. And we did this podcast about 10 days ago. So if you're listening to this and that we've seen SMU land a new commit or something new has happened, that's why it might be a little dated for you. So we are sorry in advance, but just trying to spread out the podcast love. So hope you guys enjoy this edition of the On the Pony Express podcast with Cody Bellaire. But first, we are presented by our friends at StatusJet, statusjet.com. Reach out to David Henry and his team to get all the personal attention that you want when it comes to a private jet experience. You can call them at 866-535-4062. That's statusjet.com. They can help you buy a plane, sell a plane, or get you from point A to point B with a level of luxury that you'd expect from a charter jet experience. You can also fill out their contact form on their website. Look, the Masters is coming up. There are summer trips that are starting to get planned. Talk to David Henry and his team, whether it's big jet, small jet, helicopter, however you want to get transported. Talk to them about your options. See if it's the right fit for you, your family, your friends, as you guys embark on your next journey. Please consider StatusJet when looking at your travel options. And you never know, you'll be surprised. And use code PonyUpACC for a discount on a round trip, and mention on theponyexpress.com. You can get a discount from StatusJet, proud supporters of SMU Athletics. Without further ado, we go to our interview with On3 national scout Cody Bellaire. Welcome back to the On the Pony Express podcast. Really happy to be joined now by On3 national scout Cody Bellaire. Cody, you joined us in the fall. We talked about where this 2025 class was going. Quickly, we've seen SMU ascend into a top 25 class. They are really on a roll. They've got a huge visitor weekend coming up in May, which we'll kind of touch on, but really wanted to have you back on to talk about the overall class, some key targets for the Mustangs, and where things are headed on the hilltop. So welcome back. And what are you seeing from the Mustangs so far?
Well, first off, it's obviously amazing to see you. I had the pleasure of seeing you at Under Armour Dallas a couple weeks ago, and that was a treat. So, getting to start my morning with a little Billy Embody is not a bad way to start it. So appreciate you having me on. But yeah, man, it's the 2025 group here for SMU. It's extremely strong, to be completely honest with you, man. Got to give Alex Brown and the personnel group in there some credit, because this group of players they have in the boat right now is unbelievably talented. And ultimately, it's going to help raise the floor of those position rooms, right? And that's the job that you're trying to do when you're putting together rosters. And I wouldn't get too caught up in the number of commits right now either, right? I think 7 is a totally comfortable number, especially as we head into these spring visits. Like you mentioned, that big May visit. And, we have summer camps coming here soon in the next couple months. So the thing that I think that's important that I want to touch on is you have your QB of the future, right? You have him locked in. People will eventually follow suit and follow the leader there. You got a receiver with legit track speed. You have so much versatility at defensive back and an absolute tank on the defensive front that I'm so excited to talk about down the line. But guys, that's only a good thing if you're SMU. No dead weight, no players that are just guys that you take as favors to stay in good graces with the THSCA, right? No, you don't have any of that. You got 7 players that can really play. And I'm excited to see what J.R. Sandlin does as the new GM over there for the Mustangs. And I'm excited to see how they can put together Rhett Lashley's vision for the SMU Mustangs.
And you've kept a pretty close eye on this group. You and I talk a lot about it.
Yeah.
Let's start with Kelen Russell, though, who is, at this
Sure.
point, the crown jewel of the class. They've got a bunch of targets who are highly rated, and if they can come away with them, obviously that could change. But at the end of the day, when you have a quarterback like Kelen Russell committed, one, what does that do for you? You've been on the player personnel side at Texas Tech, at LSU, at other stops. What does that do for your class from a standpoint of selling that vision and putting that together as an overall class when you have somebody that is a clear-cut elite signal caller?
Right. And I laugh at the beginning of that. I know verbatim, I have crown jewel of the class in my notes for the record. But yeah, man, it's fantastic. We're on the same page here. I love it. But I saw him most recently at Under Armour Dallas with you, Billy. And I tell you what, the strides he's made from that exact same camp a year ago to now is unbelievably impressive, right? He's grown into his frame a bit more. The ball jumps out of his hand. He has such a comfortable deep ball. He's so it's effortless the way the ball jumps out of his hand. I think I want to see him develop the ability to layer the football a little bit more. But like you said, man, he is a bona fide top 10 quarterback in the country, in my opinion. And having someone like that in the cycle, right, to answer your question, having someone like that, you can always sell sort of like what your offense is, right? Any offensive coordinator, any head coach can say, hey, this is what we envision the future to look like with you in our offense. This you're going to get fed this amount of balls, blah, 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 right? You're selling to receivers, you're selling to O-linemen. Like, this is what our game's going to look like. It's a lot easier to sell that vision when you can point directly at someone, right? You're saying, hey, this guy right here for Duncanville, this one that's led the team to like however many state championships, he has this amount of production. Look at him physically. Look at the way the ball comes out of his hand. Look at the way he moves, right? It's so much easier to sell what your product is going to be when you can point to the physical product in your hand, right? So having someone like that in your class, especially this early, you sort of get a much better vision and view of what the future looks like because you already have the king of the chessboard, right? You already have the king sitting there. It's a lot easier to put all the other pieces together when you know you have that big piece already set in stone.
He's on one of the best teams in the entire country. He's now, going into his senior year. That'll be his third year as a starter. He's led him to back-to-back state championships.
Right.
We've talked about him kind of cementing himself as one of the nation's best. What do you feel like the ceiling is for him?
Yeah, I think it's about the nuances of the position, right? I think right now we have him, if you could flip back to that ranking format, where do we have him nationally in terms of overall prospects?
He is number 123 and number 10.
123. Cool. So to me, I think if you look at him in terms of like QB specific development, if you can get him, because he has the fastball, right? I look at it like from a pitcher's perspective. He's got the fastball. He's got great accuracy. He can pinpoint spots, right? But just having a fastball sort of caps what you can be, right? I want to see some changeups. I want to see some curveballs. I want to see some sliders. I want to see some off speed, right? I want to see Kelen develop the ability to, layer that football over the linebacker up the seam. Hey, maybe you can drive that out route over the corner that's sitting in that cover two and in the flat. Like, I want to see those more advanced throws. If he starts to show that as a senior, I think you can really see somebody that has potential 5-star ability. I think if I sat here and someone said, Cody, does Kelen Russell have the potential to be a 5-star? Right now, I can comfortably say yes. He has that in him. Does he get there when it's all said and done? I'm not sure. But is the ability in there? Is that where the ceiling potentially is? Absolutely. He has the physical gifts. He has the athletic ability. He has the production. He has the resume. You just want to see the development from a pure passer standpoint. And that's all coaching, right? That's all development at the position. And I think it's more than possible that Kelen Russell, when we get closer to signing day, has the potential to be in that 5-star conversation.
We'll be keeping a close eye on him, obviously, as he goes through his recruiting process. SMU battling some of the nation's best now, of course, for him.
For sure.
They did reel in one of the top wide receivers in the entire country in Dalen Singleton, especially when you talk about slot receivers and those type of playmakers in Dalen Singleton out of DeSoto. He's a guy who just put down some really impressive times in the 100. He is on the smaller side. We know that. He's coming up off a solid junior season, another state championship. He had a big game in that dominant win over Summer Creek. Mm-hmm. What do you see from him? And Rhett Lashley has kind of assembled this group of slots, and he's kind of the next up.
Right. I mean, you touched on it, right? He's super dynamic. He's a killer route runner, right? Just a hair under 5'10", 170-ish pounds, but he is completely juiced up, right? Can really run. And you touched on that with a 100-meter time recently, sub 22 in the 200. And the thing is, with some of these slots, you see them and they're twitchy, and a lot of the short area change of direction stuff's good. But this cat has legit top end speed as well. So he does have the ability to go vertical and just blow by defensive backs upfield. But he still does have that twitch and route running ability to win underneath and win in the intermediate game as well. He's very much a plug-and-play slot receiver early on in his career, in my opinion. But with that long speed and route running and with the ability to catch the football naturally, he does have a chance to play out wide as a Z-type as well and could develop into a outside receiver that can see number one targets potentially. But he's got great upside, man. And to me, he's a guy that's got great upside and a high floor, right? I think at worst, this is someone that's going to plug in and be a number 3 type slot receiver for you. But best case, he develops into a true outside number 1 option that can win vertically and underneath.
And when you look at these slots, just kind of nationally, there's you got to be super elite when it comes to speed, verified times. Sure. There's just not many that are going to be able to do that at that elite of a level.
Right.
We're watching him pretty closely for his senior year, see him in some camp settings. He's a high 3-star. But whenever you are fighting 5'10", 170 pounds, you better be that dude.
Correct. And I think it comes with, like you mentioned the in-person viewings and the senior ability. It's tough, right? Because at 5'10", 170 pounds, you're ultimately going to be capped, right? Just from a ceiling standpoint, because the ability to go up and win 50-50 balls in contested catches does play a factor at the receiver position. And it sort of limits what you're able to do from a schematic standpoint. And again, that's nobody's fault necessarily. That's just the hand he's been dealt. But hey, if you're going to be dealt that hand, you better make up for it in the other areas. And he does that in miles, right? Like he has the top end speed. He has the change of direction. The thing for him too, and I want to see that more in person, is the hands, right? I think he does. I think he's a natural ball tracker, especially downfield. I want to see him pluck it, right? I want to see him get more comfortable catching the ball away from his frame. Because at the next level and beyond, that game's going to be really, really fast. And you're not going to be yards open. You're going to be inches open. And those inches matter, especially in contested catch standpoint, especially when you are someone that's 5'10". So you're going to be able to have strong hands and be able to take blows over the middle. And you're going to have to get used to catching the ball in traffic. And I just want to see a little bit more of that from him in order to fully stamp him as sort of this verified slot dude at the next level. But he's got a shot. He's definitely got a shot.
Sticking with the Dallas area, SMU continues to recruit the safety position really well. I mean,
yeah, man.
And I talked about this throughout the cycle now, especially in the last couple months with rankings, updates, and things like that. You look at the group they've been able to assemble with guys like Ahmad Moses and Isaiah Wacobia and all sorts of players that are all versatile, really, for the most part. That's what SMU has with this safety group as well, with Tyron Polley, Elijah Pratt, and Nathan Tillman.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, we've touched on those 3 in a previous show, right? But the buzzword of that group is versatility. It defines that group, and it defines what SMU looks at the position, right? Elijah Pratt and Tyron Polley are truly 3-phase players, right? And when I talk about 3-phase players, I talk about guys that can cover in man, they can cover in zone, and they're run supporters. And those 2 in particular, I think from a floor perspective are about as high as it gets at the safety position. I think athletically, that's where Nathan Tillman comes in, right? He's still capable of developing into that 3-tool type of player as well, but He's just a bit more raw at this point. However, out of the three, I think he's probably the best athlete of the three, and we're able to see him at Under Armour Dallas as well. He's got some rawness in coverage, right? But the athleticism is there. The movement skills, the fluidity, the top end speed is there. And I think, honestly, all three of these guys are textbook Mustang DBs. This is what you want. This is exactly what their vision is. This is exactly what they look for at the safety position. It's guys that can cover in the slot, cover in the deep half, cover in a cover two, like a split half, or as a single high safety. And these guys can all play in the run. None of these guys are soft. And that's something I think that they pound the table for in that room. All three of these guys are willing to stick their face into traffic and hit. And that's not something that's very easy to find at defensive back, but SMU's done it, and these guys fit their mold to a T, and I think they've done such a good job of assembling that room.
And Nathan Tillman is obviously a bigger, he's a bigger guy than Elijah Pratt and Tyron Pollard. Yeah. SMU doesn't care if you're 5'10" or if you're 6'2" when it comes to the
exactly.
safeties. It just cares about obviously being able to be versatile, but that physicality is so important. We talked about last pod, like a guy like Jaylen Moses that they signed. I mean, just probably 5'9.5" or so, but brings the wood.
Ball player.
Polly.
Total ball
Tillman.
player.
I mean, these guys all just, they're physical. And we saw Nathan Tillman show some of that in coverage too at Under Armour.
Totally agree, man. And they just have such a good, I don't know what their process is in terms of how they ID these guys and evaluate, but they have that thing down to a science. Like, it's amazing. Like, and that's what you touched on at the beginning of this, is they're almost all clones of each other. Like, all the safeties they bring in year after year after year, they're all the same guy, all versatile, maybe a little undersized. Some of them have a little, like Nathan Tillman, for instance, a little more upside because of the athletic ability. But all three of these guys can play everywhere. And it allows you, as a defensive staff, you have so many chess pieces that you can move around and just confuses offenses, man. Like, you're able to set things up in a million different ways, but have the same type of guys all over the field. It makes the defensive coordinator's job 1,000 times easier.
And Javion Holiday, a Duncanville defensive back, also committed to the Mustangs in this class of 2025. Yep. One of the leaders of this class, really. And he's somebody that's got the size. What do you see from him out there when you flip on that junior tape?
It's another word that we've been throwing around here, man. Physical. He is absolutely physical and fluid corner, right? Much like the safety group, in the fact that he's not scared to help and run support. Looks right around 6'1", 180, 85 pounds on film. And he's strong in press coverage, man. That's where you see the physicality. You would love to get some verified speed or times on him, because I think he runs well. I wouldn't say he's got great top-end speed at this point, but he runs good enough. And I think you can get away with that when you have length and you have size, right? Especially because with that size and the skill set that he has as a physical press corner that's not afraid to jam guys at the line of scrimmage, he projects to a boundary corner at the next level, right? When I say that, that means you got the sideline to help you. You can be physical and you can say, hey, we got a condensed field here. I don't have to be able to have the best top end speed. I don't have to have the best change of direction. Like, I got the sideline to help me. As long as I keep myself between you and the boundary, I'm good. So for me, he's someone I would love to kind of know and have a feel for how fast he really is. But the physical specimen and the toughness is absolutely there. Speaking
of somebody with verified testing and athletic traits that we want to see.
So excited. Yep.
Cameron Cullins. And look, when the 2025 defensive lineman committed to SMU earlier this month, he came in on an unofficial visit with his folks and just came with commitment on his mind. He had already set his commitment date. But when he popped, people were like, man, what an interesting offer list. Maryland, SMU, the two power conference teams that had offered. He had a bunch of those Georgia States. He had all sorts of different hodgepodge, if you will, of programs. I mean, Tuskegee is sitting there on the On300.
Hey, they got a shot. It's not over.
Look, you can point to it. Hey, we offered this guy when you guys put him in a good spot in the rankings, ultimately.
Right. Yeah. We talked about this previously, and he's not ranked yet. He will be. And when you threw his name my way and you turned the tape on, I was like, Billy, this kid is real. Like, I love this kid's tape. And he had an awesome workout at the Under Armour Atlanta camp. And the thing to point at the offer list, right? I think the thing that stands out, right? He's just shy of 6'2", right? Listed like he's verified size right at 6'2", probably nearly 270-ish pounds. But Billy, he has that buzzword that D-line coaches love, and that is length. He has absurd length. He's got nearly a 6'8" wingspan at just a hair under 6'2". That is bonkers. And that's how you win with leverage at the point of attack. Also, he's explosive. This is a guy that jumped nearly 30 inches in the vertical at 270 pounds. That's not normal. And he's got a sub 4.7 shuttle. Like, those athletic numbers are flat out awesome. And the tape is there too to match. Great bursts off the ball, good power and hand usage, and he's super active, right? Doesn't take plays off. The thing that scares people is that 6'1" plus number. But my goodness, this kid can really play. He's going to be someone that when we get a ranking on him, it'll be in the high 3-star, potentially 4-star range in our next update for 2025. I really like what he brings to this defensive front.
We'll continue to track this cycle for sure. We're not done, though, just yet. We've got a few targets. Most of them are going to be on an official visit to SMU. Actually, all of them are going to be on official visits to SMU later this spring in all likelihood. If they get there, let's lead off. Let's get back to the offensive side of the ball and a prospect that is fresh on your mind from Under Armour Houston, and a guy who's been on the radar for a while. He's taken a bunch of visits. He's been on Twitter as a prospect since a middle schooler. Yeah. And SMU is set to host him in May for an official visit. He's got a lot of those in-state schools after him. He's out of Central Texas, really. Jaylen Cooper, a 4-star wide receiver who's one of the top performers for you when you're at Under Armour Houston. Yeah,
Billy, this one's like kind of low-key a favorite for me. Like, he's kind of one of my babies. He's one of my little sleeper guys, man. In a super deep wide receiver group at Under Armour Houston, Jaylen Cooper proved that he could run with the big dogs out there. I mean, you're going into a camp. I was going into this camp, right? Saying, I love the route running, the body control, the way he's able to catch the football based off the junior film is fantastic. But I was really curious if he had that second gear. You know, could he separate from corners on vertical routes, or does he really have that twitch and that explosion in order to separate on underneath and intermediate routes against some of the athletic corners out there? And I am so happy to say that he answered both of those questions emphatically, right? He was able to beat he was able to beat defenders over the top. He was consistently carving up guys underneath and in intermediate routes, and he's got every route in the bag, right? Full arsenal of routes. He ran sub 4.6 in the 40, which is plenty good, especially for his frame. Jumped 30 plus in the vertical, ran 4.3 in the shuttle. And with his build, he's got room to add mass to his frame and get more explosive as he gets bigger and stronger and he fills out. I love what I saw from him at UA Houston, and I think he's going to have a huge senior season.
I think he was 1 or 2 in receiving yards in 6A, which is pretty strong in the state of Texas.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
That's a fun one to watch unfold as a senior and all those things too. And it's nice when you get out to these camps, you see some of these guys either prove what you think or disprove what you think and raise questions or settle concerns. And a prospect that you guys just moved up as well, come back up into the top 100, was Michael Turner, a 4-star running back. On3 is the highest on him on the On3 industry ranking. And he's a prospect that SMU is really going all out for. He's going to be there on that May 17th recruiting weekend. And, you know, they're hoping it pays off. He's kind of a quiet guy, quiet recruitment in a way, but this guy can play. He can go.
Yeah, dude. I mean, we love us some Michael Turner over here. I think we're the only service that has him in the top 100 prospects nationally. Correct. And as a top 5 running back in the country. I mean, he checks so many boxes at the running back position, right? He's sniffing 6 feet, 200 pounds, runs right at 11 seconds flat in the 100, 4.4 shuttle. So the athleticism's great. And the junior film matches that as well, right? Very strong between the tackles runner who has unbelievable vision and contact balance, especially for being one of the thicker backs, right? Especially at this stage. at the Dallas camp, I really just wanted to see the build in person, right? See how he moves carrying that weight. But the big question for me was how he functioned in the passing game, right? You see that being something that's being more and more utilized at the collegiate and NFL levels. And it's something that is on full display during this camp setting. And in the one-on-one period, I wanted to see if he had any feel for running routes and setting up defenders, as well as how comfortable he looked catching the football. And I felt that his route running was even better than I expected. And the pass catching was about what I thought, right? Much better feel for setting up backers, tracking the ball downfield. Does he fight it at times? Sure, but he can actually naturally go over his shoulder and track the football like up the seam and on wheel routes and all that good stuff. I think he's more than capable of playing a factor in the passing game at the next level and beyond. He has the chance to be a true 3-down back at the next level, and I think he's borderline special coming out of the state of Texas at running back.
Yeah, high school where Rasheed Rice played his high school ball as well, so they've had some prospects. I'm a big Michael Turner guy. I think physically, I look at some of the running backs that SMU's been associated with this cycle. He's the most physically ready now. They recruited Tiger Ryden for a bit. They're on Ricky Stewart. They've got Jasper Parker, who we'll talk about. But, I mean, Michael Turner, I mean, he just looks like he's 30 years old. So there's
I mean, when again, and we always talk about prototypes, right? Especially in this thing. That's what they look like. Like, he is exactly how you draw them up from a speed perspective, a physicality perspective, and a skill set perspective. You can ask this guy to play inside. He can go outside. He can catch the football. He can block for you. He does everything you could possibly ask for at the running back position. Yeah.
And his teammate, we talked about pass catching and being natural at it. Xavier Johnson is a guy SMU's recruiting as well. He was at Under Armour Dallas and caught our eye as well.
Yeah. And I know he's one of your babies there, Billy. I know. I mean, you pointed him out to me, especially early on, right? That's someone that and it's easy to see why, right? Like, I get it. You know, it's somebody that stands in there and he's a long and leaner athlete, but the hands, man, you mentioned the hands, and you even mentioned, you said, hey, Cody, go shake that cat's hand. He's going to shake the hell out of it now. And I was like, okay. So you go over there, you shake his hand, and the size of it and the strength when he shakes your hands, you feel that and you hear that when he catches the football, right? Some of these cats, when they catch the football in these drills, especially in the gauntlet, it's buttery, right? And there's nothing wrong with buttery, but I want it to sound like you got sticky tack on the end of those fingertips, right? When he catches it, it's like it's a clap. Like, it is not budging when it reaches his hands. And that was something that's so impressive, especially for his size, right? He's still lean. He needs to add some muscle to his frame, and he'll carry it pretty well. But the fact that he's so strong at the catch point and he's so smooth of getting in and out of his breaks, I'm super excited to see how he physically develops going into his senior season. He's somebody whose stock is up, in my opinion.
And another prospect at the running back spot we'll go back to, that is a stock up guy just over the course of 2024. I mean, he has exploded with offers out of the New Orleans area, a state you're very familiar with. That's Jasper Parker out of Archbishop Shaw. He's going to officially visit SMU May 10th as well. He'll be there with a trio of 4-star or 2 4-stars and a 3-star prospect. But Jasper is a high 3-star. He's been productive, and he now has the offers to back it up.
Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of these camps, right? You see all these prospects physically standing right next to each other. And I tell you what, Jasper Parker and Michael Turner stood next to each other a couple of times, and that's what they look like, Billy. It's not rocket science, man. They look the part and they move the part, right? I thought he looked great at Under Armour Houston. Parker standing there and you go, okay, I feel like I've seen this guy before. You go back in time and you're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly kind of what Michael Turner looked like at Under Armour Dallas. Like, that's what I'm talking about. When you see all these guys in reps, like right next to each other, right back to back. And he's definitely one of the more physically developed guys that I saw in the running back group. He's got great footwork. He's very strong in the drills. I thought he caught the ball well, and he's still learning how to run routes, right, and separate from defenders. But I thought he caught the ball extremely well. I think he's more twitched up than he is a long speed guy. I'm not sure he's someone that's going to hit a ton of home runs at the next level, but he's definitely somebody that's going to hit a ton of doubles. And everyone wants that type of consistency from their running back room. And I think he's someone that could develop into a 3-tool player as he gets more comfortable running routes and figuring how to sort of set up defenders. But I tell you what, it was about as impressive of a running back performance I saw in this entire spring cycle.
And look, SMU, they need to probably sign 2 running backs. So if they could find a way to reel in Michael Turner
For
and
sure.
Walker, just that'd be fun. They'd be
Absolutely.
Really
no question. You're living the high life at that point. And I'll touch on this because of a Jasper specifically. You got a gift in the state of Louisiana right now. The state of Louisiana at the running back position is
sick,
unreal loaded. Like there's 5 like top tier caliber backs
3
in
4-star.
the state alone. Absolutely. And like
5-star and 2 4-stars, right?
Sure, right? Not normal, right? So if you're able to pluck one of those guys away from the big bad LSU school that's in there, you did an amazing job. This is the year to do it. And if SMU is the one that gets to pull that off, more power to him, because it's an extremely talented state and he's right up there with some of the best backs in that state.
We get a little excited when we see guys that look pretty and they're shiny objects, and
for sure,
just that's the fun part about all this.
Absolutely.
One guy that is on 5-star watch for On3 is Smith Orogbo. You're familiar with him. I wanted to just touch on him briefly because we talked about Kelen Russell and how he's crown jewel and things like that. If SMU could pull off a Smith Orogbo, he's going to officially visit May 17th.
Yeah,
that would be. I mean, SMU loses by the time he'd get to campus. I believe they'd be pretty much out of there or have 1 year remaining of some of their edge rushers.
Right,
an instant impact guy.
Absolutely. I mean, this is somebody that when you turn the tape on, you get a smile on your face. It's really hard not to just light up when you watch this tape. And from a physical perspective, he's like a textbook stand-up edge, right? That's what this kid's going to play. And he plays with his hair on fire. I mean, this is somebody that tallied over 100 tackles as an edge rusher in high school. That is not normal, everyone. Like that is a position that sees 50, 60 tackles on a good year. And most of their damage is done in TFLs and sacks, right? But this kid is running sideline to sideline. Like he's covering all the blades of grass. And his athletic ability combined with his length is exactly what you're looking for from a stand-up edge rusher. To be honest, it reminds me of a guy last year in Cheta Ofili. That's again, right?
Another guy.
Going back to these Under Armour camps, right? You and me, I remember it so vividly. We were at that Under Armour Dallas camp last year. And Billy and I kind of looked at each other and we're like, hey, this Cheta Ofili kid like looks pretty good. They haven't even done a drill yet. Have not done a drill. And Billy and I were like, hey, this Ofili guy, right? Oh, did somebody tell you about him? Yep. Let's watch him and let's see how this goes. You kind of went around to get a better picture. I went around to see the drill from the side view. I'm talking first bag drill. Me and Billy lock eyes and we're like, oh, you saw that too, right? Okay, cool, good. And that's the type of vibe this kid gives me from an athletic perspective with his length. That it's just not normal. It's rare. And that's exactly what you want at the edge position. And I think Smith Orogbo is another guy that you're only going to continue to see escalate and climb in this side of things because he has the things you can't teach. And as he gets bigger and stronger and more productive, his ceiling's only going to continue to go up and up and up. And it's just, he's definitely a guy on 5-star watch for us. And if SMU can get in the mix here and land this kid, that would be the crown jewel of all crown jewels. If we want to go back to that analogy, having him and Kelen Russell potentially in the same group, you have to be unreal excited if you're a Mustang fan.
26 overall prospect, third best edge rusher, number 8 in Texas. It just shows this state just continues to
so deep
high level prospects. It's I think 25 is pretty loaded in Texas. Just star power, guys that you don't necessarily think about, and you're like, wow, that's right, he is like that good. So SMU's got a good base. The ACC impact is starting to be felt a little bit. When you are, just we'll end on this.
Okay.
When you are in the personnel department and you're in a Power 5 personnel department,
sure,
how much does that help? I mean, when you're battling, some other schools that are trying to be pesky and hang around, but just ultimately they don't have that logo on their chest.
Yeah. So you're talking about more of like how the struggle of not having that logo on your chest affects your recruitment of these types of players?
Yeah. And now SMU's, it's gone.
Yeah. It's tough, man. I mean, it makes your job harder But at the same time, I think if you're able to sell the vision for the future, to be honest, one of the best things that's kind of happened as time has gone on and more visibility on a lot of these guys, like you can watch dudes anywhere, because ultimately what you're selling to these guys is the future, right? And you're saying like, hey, we're going to win games and you're going to go to the NFL, right? Every kid that's a top prospect, their ultimate goal is to get to the league. And you can do it from anywhere. I promise you can do it from anywhere. And scouts are always like, SMU ain't no slouch, man. Like you're going to have scouts coming in and out of that building. All 32 teams will go through there. That's something you have to sell to these guys. And I think if you can instill it, regardless of whatever conference logo you got on your chest, doesn't matter. As long as you are playing ball and you are playing against some of the top competition in the country, which SMU is, you can sell it to anybody. Now, the only thing I think that makes it tough, right, is sort of the track record. Like SMU's definitely put some guys out in the league, but some of the blue bloods out there, they're going to give you the whole like, oh, we put this many NFL guys in this amount of time span. And, you can't win that fight. But what you can win is saying like, hey, we do have a track record. It may not be as extensive as these guys, but we can put guys in the league. We're identifying talent. We were one of the first schools to be on your radar, right? We believed in you from the jump. Buy into us because we bought into you. And I think if you can sell that to them and understand like, hey, we're fully invested in this and we're never going to turn our back on you. That's something I think you can point at to some of these bigger programs, right? Like you say like, hey, this big blue blood school, whatever, like they're having guys in and out of there nonstop. Their transfer portal's crazy. They're dipping guys in and out, whatever. I think if you're SMU and you're Rhett Lashley, that's the vision you have to sell. Like, hey, dude, if you're in and you're bought in, we're here. We believe in you. And we do put guys in the league. So is it more difficult? Sure. But it definitely isn't impossible. It's really not. I promise. You can still sell the future and sell the vision for that program and beyond as good as anybody in the country.
Cody, thanks so much for joining us on the Pony Express podcast. Really appreciate your insight. The great thing about SMU recruiting some of these guys that are cut above maybe where they have in the past, we'll get to have you on more often.
Oh, I love it. You're a sweetheart, man. Always a pleasure to come on here and talk to you and talk to the folks at SMU.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Cody Bellaire, for joining us on 3 National Scout. Appreciate his time on the Pony Express podcast.
Thanks, Billy. Appreciate you, man.
Well, thanks so much for Cody jumping on to join us. We do want to remind you guys to subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com for just $1 for your first month. This is a great period to jump on board. Recruiting is about to heat up. Rhett Lashley and his staff are wrapping up spring ball. There's basketball news to cover as well. So be sure to be on ontheponyexpress.com. We've had a huge amount of growth, and 2024 is going to be an incredible year to jump on board. So if you already subscribed, tell your friends to subscribe. And also, another reminder as we close out the show, go to statusjet.com. Take a look at what David Henry and his team have built. It is an incredible network of jets, of helicopters, of ways for you to be transported with an elite level of luxury. They'll handle all the details. When you reach out to them, you can fill out their contact form at statusjet.com. Make sure when you book a round trip flight to mention the code PonyUpACC or that you got referred to them by ontheponyexpress.com, and they will give you a discount on your round trip. And when you travel this way, you want to make sure that you don't worry about a thing. And some companies, they might muck it up for you. Well, you can reach out to StatusJet and they'll be able to turn it around really quickly for you to get you from point A to point B with that level of luxury that you'd expect from a private jet experience. So please reach out to statusjet.com, proud supporters of SMU Athletics and of the On the Pony Express podcast. Thanks for listening to this edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. We will catch you guys next time with another edition. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU On3 and on Instagram at On3SMU. And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.